Welcome. In this session we would understand the Sagar Mala project, which has been recently released in 2015. Now this topic is important for those preparing for general studies as well as for those going for the geography optional. Now the unique feature of this class would be we would try to assimilate the major points or the major areas through maps. So we will also cover major map locations in this class. Now Sagar Mala project can also be asked with reference to Blue Revolution in India. So it's important to note that what we are trying to do here is to assimilate the two concepts. So it's not that you need to know this concept individually, but you should envisage this concept in terms of Blue Revolution in India. Now why there is a need for a project to develop the coastal areas? Now if we talk about in terms of exports and imports, the total EXIM, nearly 90% of this is handled by the ocean routes or the ports or the major ports of India. Now out of this 90%, if we talk about in merchandise to GDP ratio, we can say India has only 42% in comparison to Germany, which accounts for 75%, and Europe or European Union, I could say, which accounts for nearly 70%. That means there is a huge scope for us to grow through the coastal region. That was the first reason why this project was released. The another reason was, we say nearly 90% of the export and import is handled through the ports of India. However, if we talk about in terms of GDP, contribution to national income, I say 9%, we can say 9% is through the railways, 6% is through the roadways, and only 1% is through the ports. So what we need to do is to grow this 1%. As a result, there was a need or a suggestion for the Sagar Mala project to be released. Now when we talk about the coastline of India, it serves nearly 13 states and union territories of India with nearly 7,500 kilometers of coastline. More than 20% of the population is based in the coastal areas. As I said, the contribution of maritime states to Indian GDP is around 60%. There are 12 major ports and 200 minor ports in India. 90 to 95% of the trade by volume is taking through the maritime transport, and finally in the next 5 years the cargo traffic through ports is expected to nearly double up. So from 976 million metric tons to 1758 million metric tons. So therefore there is a need to revive the existing system and the existing ports of the country. When I talk about the existing ports of the country or the existing maritime status, there are some major constraints that the region has. Firstly, there is lack of infrastructural facility. So no proper infrastructure is available in the port locations at present. There is no institutional arrangement. So lack of institutional arrangement is another problem. And finally, you have limited economic benefit that the region is offering to the surrounding areas and the community. If I compare India with China, you have the following statistics that you can see here. In terms of container traffic, China has nearly 155 million TEU as compared to India, which stands with just 10. In the global top 20 ports, you have 9 ports from China, while India does not have a single port. In terms of shipyard, China has nearly 70 shipyards in comparison to India with only 7 shipyards. Waterway contribution through the domestic routes is 25% in China, while it's merely 2% in India. And finally, the turnaround time in days is very high for India as compared to China. That means there is a need to modify the existing system or the existing coastal background of India, based on which you can say that there is a prosperous region for the Blue Revolution to take place in India. Based on this statistics which was revealed, there was an idea laid forward that since China has grown a lot through maritime transport, India has a huge potential to grow. As a result, there were some changes that took place. The basic idea of Sagar Mala project was laid down by NDA government by Vajpayee in 2003, where there was rupees 1 lakh crore for the port sector development. However, when there was the new government that took place in 2004, the UPA government renamed this project as National Maritime Development Project, and it aimed to increase the capacity from 300 to 800 million tons. However, as the other policies moved around, this policy could not gather a huge momentum, and by 2010 there was no significant development. By 2010 there was new policy that was laid down, which was known as Maritime Agenda, and this Maritime Agenda aimed to increase the port capacity for the expected traffic, that is around 2500 metric tons by 220. However, in 2015 this project was revived back again, and this project was focused on three basic pillars, that was the port-led development, the efficient evacuation and infrastructure. So infrastructure was the key idea, so developing the merchandise, the drafting systems, new capacity, greenfield ports, smart ports was the main idea behind the port infrastructure. When it was talking about port-led development, it focused on the logistic issues, creating of tourism, the lighthouse development and projects related to industrialization and fishing, and development of the coastal community as per se. And finally is efficient evacuation, that means the logistics which are reaching the ports should be transported to the countryside through the decongested routes. So there should be proper roadways and railways that connect the container services to the main hub of India. So there should be balance in the transport solutions that are being provided. So these three were the main pillars of this concept of Sagar Mala project. Based on this, there was a 14-point vision that was laid down. This 14-point vision was further divided into 4 sections. So I could say the first section of the vision was the India's move. Why the India is moving towards this project? So to maintain the competitiveness in the core industry, you need cheap transportation, and if you have a good transportation, the cost could, the input cost you could save by around 5%. The best way to utilize the natural resources, because through the coastal ways you can export. You have an IT enabled national multimodal logistics plan and the development of the road network. The second vision was regarding the development of world class ports. So you had the Sagar Mala development, which tried to enable the institutions of excellence, and there was 2 ports which were selected for the smart city project, the Kandla and the Paradip port. You have the release of public private partnership. As a result, there was 100% FDI that was being approved in the port sector development. Good education and training for port development, and then you have maritime services clusters that should be established. As a result of this, there was Indian Institute of Maritime that has been established in Chennai. So that is part of the development of world class port. The next vision envisaged about the development of the ports. So when we talk about development of the ports, it includes development of the smart cities and the marine clusters. Then you have some early bird project which require more investment, like the Visakhapatnam port. Then you have increasing the existing capacity of the port and providing transshipment facilities. And finally, the last vision talks about empowering the coastal community. So building their skills, creating around, the expected is around 10 million jobs. So creation of around 10 million jobs is being expected. Amount of around 70,000 crores has been put up in this project. So these are the ways the government is trying to boost the coastal community. Now, the major development runs around few things. First is development of tourism in the region, decreasing the cost of logistics in the region, decreasing logistics cost, increasing the tourism. Then you have the offshore rigging or the offshore drilling, development of hinterland hubs, These hinterland hubs will provide employment to lots and lots of youth population, creating renewable sources of energy around the coastal areas, modernizing the existing ports. So these were some of the major ideas that were laid forward. Now under this project, there was the hierarchy that was set up, or I could say the administrative control was, you have a Sagar Mala Apex Committee which will look after the coordination and the steering committee, and the State Sagar Mala Committee. The State Sagar Mala Committee is responsible for the special purpose vehicles for individual states. The coordination and the steering committee talks about the development company, and that talks about the central implementing ministries, the central special purpose vehicles, and the port SPPs. So these are the I could say the structure of the Sagar Mala project. Now based on this, there were 173 archetypes that were released, of which 53 projects deal with modernization of the port, 83 projects deal with good connectivity or increasing the connectivity of the port, 29 talk about the industrial development in the port based areas, and finally 8 projects talk about the coastal community development. Out of these, we will be picking up some major highlights in this session. So first was the decongestion of the Visakhapatnam port. That was one of the major ideas or the projects that was led by. So that was decongestion of the Visakhapatnam port. The second major idea was at the Haldia port you have lot of traffic coming in, and to release that at Raichek you need to develop alternative transport way to decongest the traffic in that region. And finally you have one terminal at Farakka that should be established for proper evacuation of coal in the region. So these three were the major projects that were taken place. Besides this, there are 6 megaports that have been planned. Now these 6 ports are important from the point of view of map locations question as well. So the first is VADHAVAN port. The VADHAVAN port lies near the Dhanu district, the Dhanu town in Maharashtra. So this is one of the major megaports that has been planned. Then you have TADADI, that is in Karnataka, again a megaport planned. You have VIZHINJAM in Kerala, COLACHEL in the region of Kanyakumari in Tamil Nadu, and finally you have 2 more. One is Machalipatnam at Andhra Pradesh, and then you have the Sagar Island at West Bengal. So these 6 are the major megaports that have been planned under the Sagar Mala project. So from map location point of view, you have all these 6 locations which we have marked here. They are important for the questions for students preparing for geography optional for UPSC as well. The next is the lighthouse tourism. There are 2 lighthouses which are planned to be developed predominantly. The first is the Kanjoi Angar lighthouse near Alibag, and the next is the Muttam lighthouse near Nagarcoil. Now if we talk about the location, there is another Muttam which is located within the center of the city, but here we are talking about the Muttam lighthouse. So if there is a question, be very careful regarding the locations for these. So Kanjoi Angar near Alibag in Maharashtra, and then you have Muttam lighthouse near Nagarcoil in Tamil Nadu. So these are the 2 major lighthouses which are being developed for tourism purpose, and there has been a lot of development taking place. Finally, you have Pipavav. Pipavav is an important location because this region would be serving as a pipeline from Pipavav to Surat and finally Hazira. So it would be connecting Surat and Hazira, and this path would be known as Hazira Surat Pipavav path. Now Pipavav is an important port to study because this is the first port of its kind which is under private sector. So the first port under private sector is the Pipavav port. It was taken over by APM terminals. It handles both the cargo, the bulk and the liquid cargo. It is one of the largest container terminals of the world, and the major areas that Pipavav serve is the nearby area of Amreli, Bhavnagar and Rajula. So the three areas that it serves is Rajula, Amreli and Bhavnagar. So again the location of Pipavav is very important, and that it is connecting it is a kind of connecting link for the Surat Hazira link, which is the pipeline. So the gas pipeline is again linked through the Pipavav. So that is again a planned proposal for development of this region. So these were some of the major highlights that we have covered under this. Besides this, as we mentioned, there was development of green smart cities. So two ports have been included for this project. One is the Kandla port in Gujarat and Paradeep in Odisha. Finally, at Navi Mumbai, you have a special economic zone that is being established, where there is a employment probability for nearly 1.5 lakh youth with an investment of 4,000 crores, and again a free trade warehousing zone will be established in Cochin and Enneron. So these two ports would again get a boost under this project. So with this we cover the highlights of the Sagar Mala project. We will be covering more schemes related to geography and general studies in the further sessions, the current topics, the recent issues which could be asked in the examination. You can subscribe to our channel for further updates. We will also be releasing test series based on for the optional students, so that would help you boost the answer writing skills. Have a good day ahead.